All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Joint Rules Committee meeting of the Vermont Legislature. Today, we are going to begin our journey and how we come back in January. And I think what I tried to do today is to prioritize what our staff needs to know sooner rather than later. So we're going to look at this beautiful spreadsheet here, which is our tracker. So everyone should have a copy of that. It's also on our legislative committee website. So all of our current policies are there. This beautiful graph is there. And we'll look to start with today. We'll start with policy number 2, and then I'll walk through 9 through 14, which is, about some of the common space here and how we've been using it. So we'll walk through those, and then we'll be talking about security cameras in the building. So with that, I'll just have our clerk, Etienne, just give a quick review of our committee's task and jurisdiction.
Sure, thank you. For the record, Betsy Ann Rask, clerk of the House. Thank you to Rebecca for posting these docs. If committee members want to get on your committee webpage, you can find our current legislative vaccination test policy as the second document posted, as the speaker mentioned. Just to give a refresher on what this committee's jurisdiction is, this committee approved a legislative vaccination test policy for members of the public. That is this committee's jurisdiction, is what is required, or in this case recommended, for members of the public. And then you recommended that the other committees of jurisdiction handle the matters as applicable to their jurisdiction. But this committee has a focus on members of the public. So if you look at your vaccination and test policy, page 1 describes generally what this policy does. And members of the public are set forth in subdivision A3. So what this policy does for members of the public is says that prior to entering any legislative space on any day of the week, all members of the public are strongly recommended to provide proof of fully protected vaccination against COVID or perform a rapid test provided by the General Assembly and obtain a negative result on that test. With the details further on providing that it is the Sergeant at Arms who would be the one to provide the rapid tests and take any proof of fully protected vaccination against COVID. From the effective date that's set forth in the last section of this policy is in effect until it's further discontinued. So it remains in effect for members of the public until this committee decides to do something different.
Great, thank you. Any questions for our clerk before we bring up the Sergeant at Arms? No, all right. Janet and Arlene, are you joining for this or no? No, okay. Okay, right here. Thank you.
She's back up.
Definitely back up. Janet Miller. I just wanted to give you an idea of where we are with our test kits and our masks and things. So for the masks, we have plenty. I don't feel like that's a problem right now and what we need to get. The test kits are a little bit more limited. We're down to about 100 boxes of the 10 packs, and we've researched to get more, but we're looking at it anywhere from $8 to $9 for one test. So it's quite costly, and people's insurance cover it and other means of getting some of the test kits. So I just wanted to give you an idea of where we are, what we have. That's about what we have right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify, you're talking about one test within each box?
Yes, per test. $8 to $9 per test.
Okay.
So 10 in each box.
Yeah.
Like the ones you gave out, with 10 in each box.
No, that would be much more, we only could get them one single test.
Per box. Got it.
Then that's what they are.
But they're upon request. I mean, they're not required.
Well, we have them, and what we thought is the way we're using them now is we're in this committee and you're sneezing and you want to just be cautious, and you could come ask us for one. We haven't been really passing them out. We've given them to staff, mostly staff that's here, the managers of the staff, and they can how they feel they're needed.
Well, doesn't the policy say in terms of a policy that we're asking folks to test weekly?
Well, we are, and it's becoming a thing that people aren't really doing. And a lot of people are somewhat still remote, and so it's
Every day.
now to have it just the way people just coming in.
Well, I guess the question that I've got is, if we're talking about establishing policies, it'll be effective when we come back in January. That means there will be a substantially greater number of tests required than we seem to be able to get. And is it wise to keep the policy the way it is, or do we do something else?
That's exactly
There are
right.
several other possibilities, I think, that we could do other than saying we're going to give things out that we don't have to be able to give out.
Clarification, it's cost prohibitive, which makes, they're very expensive, but are they also difficult to get? Is that what we were hearing?
I don't know.
They're not difficult to get.
They're
We
not
get them all the time.
necessarily difficult to get.
Okay, I just wanted to be
When you're
clear.
buying them in bulk, it also has to do with what's available for expiration dates.
Right.
So there's always been that conundrum right now about the expiration dates of testing kits. They've extended it beyond the expiration date, so you've got to check each one that you're buying a certain brand, and you got to look to see what that expiration really is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Senator, go ahead.
So I'm just curious, our policy, does it, I guess I didn't hear the words exactly, but does it imply that we're paying for them? I mean, if we're asking the legislature to test, if we ask them to test if they have symptoms, perhaps that is wiser. But I don't feel like it's incumbent upon the legislature to pay for all those tests. I mean, people are buying their own tests now. They've been buying them all summer and all fall. I mean, we haven't been here at the State House, so I don't think there's any reason to expect that people should be expecting us to pay for the testing. And if we require testing, are symptomatic.
Well, if we're requiring it,
Yeah, but
we should pay for it.
absolutely. But if we move to, if you have symptoms, asking that they test, then I think that we can.
Well, if you ask them to test, and they've got to come here to get the test when they have symptoms in order to get the.
We don't want
The whole
them.
issue, precisely, the whole issue is you want them to be able to test at home before they come here in the first place.
If they go and get their booster, they get free tests.
So I think this is exactly why we're talking about this today, is because we created this at a different time, and it's not currently even being practiced right now. So I think that's why it's good for us to say, should we, at this point, does it make sense to discontinue this policy? And then as we get closer, if there's a need that arises, we can adjust. But right now, we're not doing this. So does it make sense to have this policy still? Etienne, I saw your hand up.
No, just to confirm, the current policy, if you look at the details on page 5, it does require.
We only have this in front of us, so I'm not going to comment.
It does require the sergeant at arms to provide the rapid
Yes.
tests to the public with the way that the policy is currently raised.
So Representative McCoy and then
Just
Al.
clarification, I just want to make sure everybody has the paperwork. So I'm looking online.
I have the paperwork for what we were handed, but it doesn't have the current policy.
Do you have,
So if we could get a few copies of the current policy printed out, I'd like people to have it in front of them, if that's okay with you.
yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
So because it seems to be very costly, and I mean, for myself, I know when I felt like it was 2 days after the session ended and I took the test 2 days after, I had COVID 2 days after the session ended. Thankfully, it wasn't during session.
Good.
But maybe, maybe we could purchase enough to have a box per rep and senator and use only when they have symptoms or something.
Yeah.
Well,
Instead of mandating the day before and the day of.
So we're only talking about the public right now.
Oh, only the public. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's a conversation for another day. But
I
we're
don't
just,
know if you can, well, the issue I have with that is, I don't know how you mandate, I mean, it's a public building. How we mandate that they take it. It's strongly recommended.
right, that's what we,
Do we
where we
know how many
landed.
people actually went and,
I'm not aware of any.
because they had to go over to Aiken to do it, correct?
Well, that was to get the PCR test, but also, yes, the antigen, we had it, you're correct, we had it available.
Take the test, and I'm wondering how many actually did.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any.
There was any.
If there was one,
Pretty low.
but I don't think so.
Very low.
But the public are pouring in now. We have a policy in place that we hope that if they're coming in, they're encouraged to have been vaccinated and tested. But they're pouring in now without you checking anything.
Correct.
How do they know that?
That's why
Is there something that tells them?
Well, there's a sign.
There's a sign on the front.
all right, so I know it's been a while since we've talked about it, so it's easy to just jump right back into it. I think the question that I have for all of you is, does it make sense to discontinue this policy for the public?
Only for the testing piece.
What other do you?
What's the
Well, the
other?
beginning is about encouraging them to be vaccinated. And I would still keep that in place. But if the testing piece, if it's problematic from a financial point of view, and I think the other piece of our recommendation is if you have any symptoms, we would encourage you not to come in.
Does the signage on the door say that?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So I'll just say we can leave it as policy. We don't have to. It's already on the door. We already have that addressed at the openings of the building.
It wouldn't be on the door if it wasn't policy. Right.
Huh.
Kind of a catch-22.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of places you go into have the signs there. Strongly encouraged wearing masks if you're not vaccinated.
Right.
So,
I think that's important. I mean, there are still a number of members of our, people who work in this building and members of the legislature who have concerns and who have issues. I don't know of anyone in our body who has long-term COVID, but there's certainly a lot of people who are compromised in all sorts of ways. So I think it's continuing strongly encouraging is important. And if you have symptoms, we don't want you coming in if you would be kind enough to be thoughtful about everybody else.
So we would be removing the rapid testing, and what about the proof of vaccination? That was another one that,
I wouldn't put that in there.
but no one's
Checking, right.
Checking.
We would just strongly encourage that you be, if you're going to get to the building, that
Right.
you are vaccinated and boosted.
So are you talking about, we're on D, right, page 5, so it would be 1A, small, I don't know how you say this.
You're on page 5, Tammy.
Double I, those two?
I don't have my hard copy. I'm waiting for a hard copy too. Thank you.
What Damien calls them, the mini, whatever they're called.
1A, this one and this one?
The sub 1, provide proof of fully, and then sub 2. Yep.
Yeah. Those,
So we check. Okay.
yeah. That's what we're
Yep.
talking about.
Is there anything else listed there that a member wants to put forward to remove? Those are the two of the bigger ones that I think we needed to address because of current practice and budget.
So, and it's, I mean, that's all D, D, A, I guess, 1A. Those are the only bullet points under that.
Yeah, so we could just strike.
So, and then B is the office of the sergeant at arms would, so maybe we should seriously consider striking it all.
Yeah. Janet, do you still, the maintaining of records
For the public.
for the public?
No.
No. Okay, so we could strike that one too. So strike A and B.
Well, I mean, I think we'd want to modify A as a condition of entry into a legislative meeting space that continue to strongly recommend they be vaccinated and if they have symptoms, not.
Representative McCarthy?
But currently, right now, we're not conditioning anyone's entry into the State House based on their vaccination status.
No.
So really, all all of that language
Should go.
relevant. And I think what Senator Clarkson is getting at is that we would like to encourage or require that the Sergeant of Arms post a recommendation that's strong at entry so that people know, but none of this language really applies in correct form. The different thing I think that Senator Clarkson's getting at.
I think for anyone, any member of the public coming into this building, we need to be strongly recommending that they be vaccinated, and if they don't, wear a mask, and if they have symptoms, to not come in. I mean, I think those are the things we want to be asking of the public and ourselves.
Here, and then just make a statement that.
So if we could, does everyone have it in front of them? I know it's a little.
Page 5, right?
Yep. Page 5.
Little d.
Little d. So if we struck 1 and 2, and then put in language that reflects what we're doing with signage, right? Like that, the message to the public. Is that Representative or Senator Clarkson, does that?
I mean, strongly recommended. I would have a bunch of things under strongly recommended under 1. Instead of striking it, I'd say, I would continue with, we under D, where it says members of the public strongly recommended, enter, proof, I don't know if you want to say proof, but strongly recommended that all people entering the building be vaccinated and or have tested. And if they are showing symptoms, to not enter. And to wear, and striking all of it still.
Right, so it's striking.
Let's do the strike all.
So it's a strike and then it's what you just said, Senator.
Yeah.
That language. Okay, Betsy Ann?
And to confirm, so right now the policy is that members of the public are strongly recommended to provide proof of vaccination. So I'm just hearing the distinction. What Senator Clarkson was mentioning, it's not that the Sergeant at Arms would need to request proof of vaccination from any members of the public, just that essentially it's signage saying that members of the public entering the State House are strongly recommended to be vaccinated against COVID, and you can maintain the public health screening questionnaire language that is here.
Yes, and if they are exhibiting symptoms, to please not enter. I mean, that goes for members and for the public. For anybody. I mean, I think it's thoughtfulness is what we're trying to promote.
So I think it would, Madam Speaker, I think it would just be an update to the public health screening questionnaire to add any reference to a strong recommend to be vaccinated against COVID, along with the existing language.
Great. Are there any other thoughts on this one? What I'm thinking is we could have, what I like to do, give space for our clerk to update the language and we can continue going through. And then loop back to seeing language to vote on. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, as far as the public health screening questionnaire, the Office of the Sergeant at Arms shall ensure that members of the public are asked whether they have, I don't know how that happens when people are coming in from 7 a.m. in the morning till 6 or 7 o'clock at night, that someone's going to be posted at the doors to ask. It just is not, it didn't happen this session. Why are we keeping it in here? Because we're not even following this now. They didn't ask when we came in here. They didn't ask the public when they came in here, are you exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19? They just didn't have the.
We're asking the public.
Capacity.
We're just asking the public to, it's incumbent upon them. It's not incumbent on the Sergeant at Arms.
This number 2 is. It ensures that the Sergeant at Arms office will ask members of.
Yeah, so
I disagree with that.
So
I think we should let's do a strike all.
So we're striking 1 and we're striking 2.
That's what I understood you said.
Yeah, that's what, yeah,
Well, that's not what Betsy said. So,
okay.
okay.
Senator Brock, did I see your hand?
That was the point that I was making, is I
Okay.
think this is utterly ineffective. And as we look back to the question of how many members of the public have asked for this rapid test, and in all this time, the answer is 0, that's a pretty good clue that this is utterly ineffective. Nobody reads these signs. Government buildings have signs everywhere. You go blind if you try to read all the signs.
I read those signs.
1,000 does.
All right. Let's bring it back together here.
Just say,
Okay, so you have what you need for us on language. Thank you. So let's move to number 9 on our list here. So if you recall, yes, I hope everyone can read this okay.
pausing you. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that part.
Okay.
Little joke.
So we pause the use of the card room for advocates and special interest. The question is, do we bring this back for next legislative session? I'll look to see if our Sergeant at Arms has any thoughts on this one, but I think I would like us to consider opening it back up.
So we have taken people's names and requests for that card room space, and we got it all pretty much taken up for the year because we do it the year before. So we still did that in January of last year or January of this year. And, that space now, we can, if we're going about the air quality issues, it can still hold about 20 people. So I think we'd be fine having the card room open again, and it's something people really like and the advocates like to have.
Okay. Any other thoughts about the card room? Senator, yeah, go ahead.
About everything, of course. I think that this is fine and great and applaud, exciting to be reopening up. I would say that if we are taking that away as space we can mingle and meet and actually we have to create some more meeting spaces for legislators. And so I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're giving the card room back to the advocates, that we create some more space for ourselves or
Yep. I have here, I definitely don't want to get us off track, but I do have a list of meeting spaces that are available that I'll send out to you all that talks about what spaces will be available and what the occupancy is for those. So we have a list of about 7 or 8 of those, but that'll be another topic for another meeting.
our meeting rooms.
Yeah. All right, so would someone?
Number 9.
Yep. So would someone move that we allow the Sergeant at Arms to begin scheduling the use of the card room for presentations and events? Thank you, Senator Clarkson. Any other discussion on this before call the vote? Senator Ballant?
Yes.
Senator Mazza is absent. Senator Clarkson?
Yes.
Senator Brock?
Yes?
Representative Long?
Yes.
Representative McCarthy?
Yes.
Representative McCoy?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So it passes 7-0-1. All right, moving on to number 10. So this is the cafeteria sidebar receptions. You remember that copies that we limited the sidebars for one sidebar in the morning and one in the afternoon. I'll see if our Sergeant at Arms has a recommendation. I personally think that leaving it one in the morning and one in the afternoon makes sense just for traffic flow and when we're in the cafeteria. Janet, do you have any?
I think we would be able to provide for that because the receptions and the breakfasts also are come and go kind of things. It's kind of meet and greet and go on your way. Or in the evening, people mingle around a little, but I think would be the space would provide adequate space and for that.
So keep one
One in the morning,
Yeah.
one in the afternoon.
Have we ever had more than one in the morning and one in the afternoon?
A couple times that there have been a few that
Didn't really.
Okay.
particularly in the afternoon.
In previous years.
I think
In the afternoon. Okay.
Yes, regardless.
often competitions for our attention in the morning.
Right. So I'm just going to look around the table. Is everyone good just keeping this
Yep.
as is?
Up.
Great. Thank you. That's number 10. Number 11. We pause the use of the Cedar Creek room for large press conferences and receptions. And so this is one because of the air quality. I think we might want to leave the status quo with just smaller groups, but I'll also turn to our.
I mean, the air quality up there is still around 30. I mean, we can be a little bit flexible. We have been a little bit because we're just trying to accommodate people here at the State House. But, you know, some of our larger press conferences had 150 people in that space. So my recommendation was that we kind of stick around to 30. And then if people need other space, there are other spaces available for press conferences, not necessarily in the State House, but perhaps, you know, on the steps or in the other spaces that are in parts of.
Members agree to keep it status quo for now?
Oh, it's sad. I mean, it's just frustrating to be able to open up more of the building, and we're still back at the problem of our air challenge.
Yes, big time.
And what's our time frame, Janet, for that getting fixed?
It's going to be a while, but would probably.
Oh, I thought we were on deck, that we had a date.
Well, it's been delayed somewhat by a few different things. And BGS will be addressing that to the institutions committees of what the little bit of holdup is. There's a couple of things come up. But maybe 24 in the summer of 24. So this, you know, so it's going to be a while until we.
So it's going to be for this whole biennium,
Will be as we are now.
is what you're saying?
Yes.
That's too bad, because I think we had thought it was going to be sooner.
Right.
Senator Bell?
Janet, can you just remind us where some of those other spaces are?
Sure. So the spaces at the bottom of 133, the fourth floor at the 133, this is the tax department. There's the Snelling room that's in the pavilion. There's the auditorium in the pavilion. There's the fourth floor in the pavilion that's also open to us. And the possibility, I think, that we will have access to the same second floor that we had last year in that connector space. I just haven't had a chance to confirm with Kevin from our ID department of what portable devices or whatever he may have to be able to have them be Zoom or Zoomable, because we've moved some equipment around to bring it back here.
And so just to follow up, Janet, if somebody calls to try to reserve the Cedar Creek for a press conference, do you give them other options if they were going to have more than 30 people?
Yes,
Attending.
we tell them that they could call the pavilion, or we could call Buildings and General Services, and they have a list of all these and they can book it.
Great, thank you.
And
Go ahead.
I just follow up on Becca's. And legislators who might want to do one, can they do that through you?
Yes.
So legislators are able to do it through Janet, which is
Right.
much easier. Right. And the Snelling, I mean, of all those options, you know, none of those are great. The Snelling room at the history, at the VHS is really the nicest.
Yeah.
So people,
Yeah.
not a bad option.
Yeah. Representative McCoy?
And I don't have an issue with the press conferences. I just question having receptions there with the open food.
Where was that? Senator McCoy? Or-
Receptions, people,
Oh, right.
receptions with food there. I'm hesitant about
So
maybe having that.
those would be in the cafeteria.
Okay.
Because the air is better in the
And
cafeteria.
yeah,
Okay.
it's more space.
I would still have an issue with that. Okay.
Okay, so we're all good on keeping the status quo for the Cedar Creek room? Yes? Okay. And then just schedule,
So can I just, that's going to be for the biennium. I mean, it sounds like that's going to
Yeah,
be for the next little bit.
unless we change it.
Obviously,
But
it
yes,
sounds
set
like
us up.
the core challenge is not going to be solved until summer of 24.
That's right, unfortunately.
The Legislative Advisory Committee on the State House didn't meet, so we, last time we did meet, that's what I remember, it was going to be sooner than that, but. So it sounds like
Unfortunately,
this is going to be for the next 2 years, sadly.
yes. Yes, unless we find a way to make it,
I think there's a
Come
supply
sooner.
chain issue with these components as well as anything else.
so we've gone into the next two about scheduling press conferences and going through the sergeant at arms and the different spaces available. And so we'll just keep those policies in place for now. And then the last one was around school groups and tours, which I'm thinking probably, well, let's hear from Janet.
We have been kind of limiting the school groups that come in. The one thing, I know we have one in the morning and one in the afternoon here. And after talking to our tour coordinator, we divide the groups up mostly in the morning. So there might be 2 in the morning because kids or children that are coming to do tours need to get back in the afternoon. So I think as long as we kept it kind of 25 and 25, and that's a little loose because if there's 30, we don't want to tell 5 kids they can't come in. So basically that we'll be striving to do 25 at a time, but at separate times.
Okay, so keep. Any questions?
I mean, keep it.
Just a little
limited.
different wording with the one in the morning and one in the afternoon to maybe just 2
Okay.
groups of 25.
Eliminating the time of day.
The only,
So 20.
just have one question on that. So when we meet at 1 o'clock, if in fact we're keeping the floor times the same, usually just thinking of the varsity groups that come in and they won the state championship, they want to be there for the afternoon. And if you have 2 groups coming in the morning, usually they're long gone by 1 o'clock because they have to get on the bus to go home. So I don't know if we can word it in a way that, you know, if you have 2 in the morning, you know, I don't know how you word that. If they want to be recognized, which seems like we had a few last session. I don't want to say, no, you can't come because we had 2 in the morning.
I don't know if they were getting tours though. Aren't they
No,
just
they're
coming
not.
to be
No, they were
recognized?
just in the chamber, but
Yeah.
you do have 25 people
Right.
coming in the
Yeah.
State House. And
I think our goal with this was to buses that were coming for trips to go through and tour the building, that we were keeping an eye on how many people were coming and going. So,
And I think to your point, that they could just come in because we're not really giving them a tour.
Right.
Yeah.
so, okay,
Yeah.
good.
We just got to keep people moving.
yes.
Yeah. Good.
Representative Long?
Yeah, I was just following up on that. There's nothing in this one that speaks to morning or afternoon.
Right.
And so I am comfortable with the language and am comfortable with the Sergeant at Arms office being able
Right.
to monitor
Their
this.
discretion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is everyone okay just leaving this as is then,
Yeah.
based on what we just heard? Okay, great. Seeing nods, fantastic. Okay, I'm wondering if our clerk has any language to share to go back to number 2.
Share screen, if that's okay. And one of the things I just wanted to revisit with this committee is overall, the policy right now as it stands, the vaccine test policy, really revolves around the Sergeant at Arms office either checking proof of vax for members of the public that agree to do it, or people actually taking tests, which we've heard from the Sergeant at Arms are of limited supply. So I'm wondering if the committee would actually want to do something more of an informal motion. Let me just share some potential language that I've come up with here, put it on the screen. Let's see if you can see it okay. Let's get the windows situated. Not coming up yet on this.
Coming up on us, but it should be.
Here, let me try one more.
We're getting to look at ourselves.
Yeah. 1 second, I will stop share. Let me go back in here. I'll try to share again. See if the IT will collaborate with me one more time. Oh, it is not doing it. Okay.
You could email to us, and we all seem to have our computers.
I'll email it to you. I'm wondering if this could be more in the form of a motion. 1 second. I'm about to email it to all joint committee members.
Okay, we're getting there. Oh, it popped up. How exciting.
Coming your way, Joint Rules Committee.
Thank you.
Because really the policy right now, as written, really does revolve around the requirement to provide tests, whether upon request to members of the public or the chambers will deal with their own testing requirements for their members, and JLMC will deal with their own testing requirements for legislative staff. This committee is focused specifically on what is required of the public or what should the public be encouraged to do. So I'm wondering, let me know when you get that in your email.
Does everyone have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you would prefer to do something more of a motion that is in regard to the signage, which I was understanding that the suggestion was to strongly recommend to members of the public that they be fully vaccinated and to consider whether they have any health symptoms that might be reflective of COVID-19 and to refrain from entering the State House or a legislative space if they exhibit those symptoms. So a potential motion that this committee could make in regard to members of the public and public health signage and a strongly recommended vaccination and public health questionnaire could be that the Office of Sergeant at Arms shall post public health signage near entrances of legislative spaces that strongly recommends that members of the public be vaccinated against COVID-19 as a condition of entry, and that asks members of the public whether they are exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 and directs them to refrain from entering a legislative space if they exhibit those symptoms. Does that reflect the suggestion?
I'm looking around the table. I believe it does, but I'll give members a chance to sit with it.
I think it's good.
So it would be,
I think you could do it in a form of a motion. I could reflect it in the minutes so that you would have a record that that was your decision. And the Sergeant at Arms would have her direction that that's the signage that she could post around legislative spaces. Sergeant, I'm going to email that to you right now. I'm sorry I didn't include you on that email, Sergeant.
I can show her, I can.
the motion would be to approve this language and strike those two sections of the
Yes,
policy.
it could be two motions. You could approve this signage requirement and then there could be a motion to discontinue the policy as it applies to the public.
Okay. Any questions about the language? Thoughts? Okay, so why don't we do discontinuing those two sections of the policy under D, 1 and 2? Can I have a motion to discontinue that?
I would move that we discontinue those two sections of the policy.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll call the roll. Senator Ballin.
Yes.
Senator Mazza, absent. Senator Clarkson. Senator Brock.
Yes.
Representative Long.
Yes.
Representative McCarthy.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that carries 7-0-1. And now can I have a motion to adopt the language around signage?
So moved.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, I'll call it. Senator Ballin.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
Yes.
Representative Long.
Yes.
Representative McCarthy.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Yes.
I am a yes, also carries, motion carries 7-0-1. Thank you very much. This will give us a good starting place for staff and our Sergeant at Arms in terms of planning for this session. As we get closer to legislative session, we'll continue to go through and tick through the different categories and boxes in here. But for now, those are the ones that we'll do for today. Next on our agenda is to talk about cameras. Will you be taking the lead on?
I just would like to say, we just want to give all of you an update on where we stand with our camera grant that we applied for. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we all understand and get the approval of what the intent of the grant is for the cameras. So Chief Remwe has really taken the lead on writing the grant and getting all the information. It's quite a lengthy process, so I'd like him to be able to address the cameras.
On camera.
On camera, there you go.
All right. Chief, oh, there you are.
Good morning, Chief Romeo, Capitol Police. as you may remember, we spoke back in the spring, the date escapes me at the moment, and this committee authorized us to apply for a Department of Homeland Security grant to enhance our security camera coverage outside and to install cameras on the inside of the building. I'm pleased to report that that grant was awarded in the amount of $250,000. That gets us real close to what was the middle quotation when we went out for proposals on that project. We have split this into 7 phases for mainly to keep me sane. But after the springtime vandalism incident on the front steps of the State House, we moved some things around, and phase 1 of this project, if approved, would be to install and enhance our exterior security camera coverage around the building. We have a number of blind spots where neither our cameras nor BGS's nor judicial security are able to cover. And we've worked with a vendor that put the cameras in and around the Massachusetts and Rhode Island state houses to come up with some proposals that would not overly negatively affect the aesthetics of the Capitol complex, but would accomplish what we're looking for. So that would be phase 1 of the 7. The second would be entirely back of the house. It would be in legislative IT's world, where the horsepower and mechanics of the system were improved. Phase 3 of the project would be common areas and corridors of the State House. We have been working directly with our State Office of Historical Preservation and the State Curator to balance the needs of the historical preservation of the State House with accomplishing our goals, which is to improve our security footprint of the building. Phases 4 and 5 kind of have 2 subparts that make them 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's House and Senate chambers and House and Senate committee rooms. I'd like to be very clear that I don't believe we have enough grant money to go the full 7 phases. I think we'll run out of grant money somewhere around the end of the corridors and common areas phase of the project. We may, simply because there's so few cameras that would actually be needed to do it, we could cover the House and Senate chambers. However, that would end up going to the House and Senate Rules Committees for their deliberation. So today, if I'm happy to dive deeper if there's a desire to do so, but today I would seek approval to go through those first 3 phases of this project.
So that's, again, the outside of the State House, the back of the house, infrastructure, and then the interior infrastructure, and then common areas, hallways.
Common areas and corridors, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any discussion, questions? Yes, Senator Clarkson.
Matt, have you been able to, how apparent are these cameras going to be? I hope they're going to be sort of as discreet as possible.
That's one thing I'm actually very pleased with right now. The vendor we're working with has faced this dilemma before and has some products that allow us to do more with fewer and to make them, for instance, I'll buy you lunch if you can find the camera in the Cedar Creek room in under a minute. I'll go ahead and make that bet today on the record. It is the technology they have brought to bear in this project is really impressive. And I mean, there are going to be places where you will see cameras. We're not hiding them. And Kevin, that does not apply to you. They're not going to be hidden except in just a very couple of places where we didn't have a better option, but they're also not going to be garish. All of the cameras that we have been working with, the housings of them can be painted to match the walls they live on or ceilings they live on. And we really went through, they've made half a dozen site visits now to walk through the building and go, okay, I'm really not happy. Matter of fact, we have another one coming up tomorrow.
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Right.
Where they're coming back and going, you know what? I'm really what else can we do here? And they've worked really hard to give us some options that are tenable.
Perfect.
Part of the requirement is to go to historic preservation because of the registrar of the state capitol. So David Sheets and those folks, they're watching every step we take.
Thank you, Janet.
I bet.
Representative Long.
So thank you, Chief Romeo. The question I have is about monitor and how the camera film, whatever, would be used. So my assumption is that it's not something that we monitor all the time, but we would have a digital record of the recording of the security case needed. Is that accurate?
Correct. We currently have a camera policy that was, Janet, you might help me remember the date, but it's it has a little age to it and needs to get tweaked a little bit, but the basics of it are still strong, where we retain footage for 30 days and discard it after that, unless there's a reason to keep it. I've also been in discussion about if we can treat internal cameras differently than external cameras when it comes to disclosure. I can't make a commitment on that right now, but we are working hard to balance the need of the occupants of the building to be able to do their job and to do their work. I will say that we keep a display on in the office. There's 2 times a year where someone is sitting and watching those, and that's State of the State and budget address because of the enhanced security posture that we go through. One of the things we did create with this, with the selection of this particular system, is an ability to integrate our future needs. So, for instance, the panic button system in the State House is it's well matured, if you will, and we need to start looking down the road at something that might come in to replace that. And we're looking at places where we're looking at creating a system that we can plug in other systems to work in a combined posture.
Great, thank you.
Senator Brock?
That was my question.
Oh, great. Okay. Any other questions for the chief or the sergeant at arms? If not, I would welcome a motion that the committee approves the first 3 phases of the proposed State House security camera installation.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All right, I will call the roll. Senator Ballin.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
Yes.
Representative Long.
Yes.
Representative McCarthy.
Yes.
Representative McCoy.
Yes.
I am a yes. Motion carries 7-0-1. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. So we flew through the agenda for today. Are there any other questions or future agenda items that you would like outside of the ones that we already discussed today for a future meeting? Senator Clarkson.
Obviously we have legislative spaces.
Yes, we do.
Committee rooms and rooms for us to use together and lounge, establishing a proper lounge for us. Yeah, and a workspace.
Yep. That is.
I think those are
on the docket.
critically important. And getting the work of the restoration back on board. I don't know if the Joint Legislative Management Committee has discussed that, but it would as a member of that committee, I really am sorry that we haven't been doing any work on that this summer and
So the
really,
State House Committee.
yeah, exactly, on the State House Committee. And all of this discussion reminds us how important it is for us to get that back on track. So I am really disappointed we've let a whole sort of summer go by without moving that along.
When you say moving that along, what exactly are you referring to?
State House, well, the renovations of the State House, anything we would be adding, our plan for how we're going to restore and add to the State House, because all of this, this is about health and safety in our spaces and air and enough space to do our work. Now that we know so much more about how a pandemic is transmitted and how we keep health and healthy air and, bigger meeting rooms, and the need, I think, to move that State House plan along in terms of what we're doing this is just, our work here today just reinforces the need to continue that work, and we have lost a year doing it.
Yeah. So while the committee hasn't been meeting, I know that the RFP process for the building is in the works, and I believe I'm really sorry to put you on the spot. Could you give us a quick update?
Yep. So the RFPs have gone out.
Yeah.
Buildings and General Services in charge of that. They've also included my office, which I also include our architect helper, Tricia Harper. And we met with them. We were part of the process of, there were two entities that put in an RFP to continue to do the schematic design or however far we can get. And Tricia's not here to tell us how that would work, but it is going forward. And there's two, and we're in the process of picking the one person with the one entity job, the initial job. So.
Right, the initial job we agreed to, which, just to remind everybody what that is.
Well, it was to do the phases to get to what the expansion should be.
Or could be.
Or could be.
We haven't decided what it should be.
No, that's right.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. All right. Those are noted. Senator, any other future agenda items before we adjourn? Nope.
When do we think we might want to regather to address some of those things so that all the work that might need to happen could have time to happen before session?
I know we have to also schedule another JLMC meeting, so we'll work on coordinating it since there's some overlap there. Yeah. Okay. So be on the lookout. All right.
Good. Thank you very much.
So much.
Good to see everybody.
See you.